Okay, so this is the way that the upper echelon works between the satanic side, which would be the black tiles, and the religious side of righteousness, whatever you want to call it, the good side, which is the white tiles. So I recently had someone say, "Oh, you need to make a choice whether you want influence over the world or whether you want fame, fortune, and money." And so that kind of tells you what's going on when you see people that are like essentially what you'd call the majority of the people who are in the limelight, or you would call self-centered, egotistical, and driven by monetary gain and riches, fame, and fortune. Most of those people are black tiles or Satanists. You just wouldn't see it because they're good at hiding that. And a lot of those individuals would be narcissistic, and they're part of that whole clan, right? And that's why in the Bible it says things that like demons work in groups, and that's why you'll see that a lot of the people that are in the upper echelon are narcissists. They have groups of people that reside below them, that they use as their minions and their tools to maintain their status quo and use to attack the opposition, which is actually what you call the good righteous side. The righteous side, what they do, which is kind of what I've done most of my whole life, is that they use the money that they accumulate through their conglomerate, whatever you want to call it. They're called a pyramid if you want to. Through their pyramid, they use that money towards influencing society in positive ways. I'm gonna just fucking say it. So I'm not gonna tell you how to identify what I've done in society and what I've built over the past 20 something years. But 12 years ago, so 12 years ago, I was judged by the upper echelon. And so I had a series of what you would call thumbs up and thumbs down, kind of like you would see Caesar before he executes someone. And I had enough assholes in Hollywood that gave me a thumbs down. A couple of the assholes were the people on the show Psych. And I remember specifically the reason why, because they obviously overheard what I had to say, is that they were very similar to the show Monk, and I watched Monk, but I didn't watch Psych. And so one of the thumbnails that was on Netflix was them giving a bad look to the screen with a thumbs down. And that was a way of them to actually judge me, because when you get high enough up into the upper echelon, these people can't even get into your presence. They don't even have the capability of contacting you except in, ways such as that. So those would be what you would call some of the people on the dark side that are narcissistic and working to enrich themselves and fluff their own ego, you could say. So that would be the dark side. And that's when you're on the light side, you rise up so high above them, and you have people underneath you that take care of you and protect you from those types of abuses, that those types of people who do that sort of thing can't even get in your presence. Like, you would have to choose to go to where they're at, break the barriers in which your people have created to protect you, to get within physical distance to even have a conversation with those people. Which, in my mind, it's a fairly new thing for me to have come to the conclusion of that and actually have been told that. It's something I've been told. I had to actually learn that from someone else, because this is stuff my parents never told me. I never understood any of this. But that's kind of how the dark side and the light side of, what you call the upper echelon actually behave. And the dark side likes to steal, kill, and destroy. So what they want to do is they want to try and get a hold of a person like me and then try and siphon whatever they can out of me. The thing is that no debt in the universe goes unpaid. And when they start stealing, killing, and destroying someone on the lighter side of things, they sabotage themselves, especially when that light disappears. That's one of the things, is that the people on the dark side, they require the righteous light that comes from an individual to continue on. That's why they're narcissists, and they scavenge energy off of other people. They can't create it on their own. And so by nature, you kind of are automatically chosen to either be a creature of light or a creature of darkness when you elevate up to a specific level. It becomes a natural response. And the upper echelon will test you. They'll pester you, they'll poke at you, they'll try to harm you. And I've had them many times try to tell me that I'm a dark tile, which is nonsense. Those are just demons trying to tell you that they want to take you onto the dark side. But I've never reacted in kind towards them in a harmful or aggressive manner. I've told those demons to F off, right? And you know, you turn the other cheek plenty of times, but I've never actually raised my hand towards them and reacted in kind in the way that they've done me so wrong. What I had done actually, because you know, YouTube was created by a person in the upper echelon as a way to empower the individual. You know, could be anybody at this point who wanted to be an influencer and wanted to elevate up something to the extent of what you would call a Hollywood star. You could say that was done as a matter of retaliation because of what Hollywood had done 12 years ago. So YouTube was created preemptively, and then some of the upper echelon had gone out of their way to help elevate this paradigm shift, so there was no longer a barrier in Hollywood that you had to go through in order to become a Hollywood star. So that was kind of a partial way to destroy what you would call barriers in the establishment, so anyone could elevate up to that point. And what that kind of does is that kind of destroys the system on the dark side. The dark side can't handle that, because now, how do you say, what hides in the dark eventually gets exposed to the light. And a large portion of Hollywood, don't get me wrong, there's some good people in there, but a large portion of Hollywood is well, they're not creatures of light. And that's why a lot of them support the Democratic side of the government, because as pretty as the Democratic side likes to look out in the open, they're hiding some really deep, dark secrets that I would rather not explain. And you know, I mean, really, in reality, both sides of the government hide deep, dark secrets. It just depends on whether you want to support a conservative side that tries to support independence of the individual, or if you want to support a side that wants to tax the rich in order to take care of the less fortunate. But the issue right now in today's society is that the devil likes to tell you something that's the truth, twisted enough to make it a lie, but still sound like the truth. And so when the government says they want to help these people and that people, and you know, they'll throw in something sneaky like, we want to help disabled people, but all of a sudden there's people that are morbidly obese, and they've done this to themselves by eating themselves practically to death. And all of a sudden, a wealthy person who's worked his whole life is supposed to pay for Social Security for this obese person that has essentially abused themselves to the point where they're unhealthy. Kind of the same mentality with drug addicts that won't quit. You know, it becomes a drain on the system. And I understand that, you know, someone that's an addict that needs help to heal themselves and to not do it again needs assistance. But you know, when you make it easy for them to do it over and over again in a system where it's a revolving door, and then you want to claim them as the victim, that's essentially removing responsibility of the individual, and that is what you would call the way of the Democrat. And the Hollywood likes that because they don't want to be responsible for the nasty shit that they do. There's a lot of crap that goes on behind the scenes of Hollywood that, you know, a lot of the stories are true, we'll put it that way. But that's getting exposed. You know, you go look at P. Diddy, part of the pyramid, part of somebody's pyramid. When the leader of that pyramid found out that P. Diddy had been running around being a kid fucker, that was precisely when shit started going down, and going down hard for him. One of the top leading people of that pyramid resided in New York, and so Puff Daddy had a mansion in, what was it, Florida, in LA, and in New York. And the branches of the government, I believe it was Homeland Security or some shit like that, because it had to do with international, probably sex trafficking or something like that. The government raided his home in LA and his home in Florida. They never even mentioned his New York home. That place didn't get raided, and that's because part of the territory of that pyramid was trying to hide their shit. And so even inside of one particular pyramid, you can have upheavals that arise that cause all kinds of disruptions in society. And right now what you're seeing in the music industry, you know, there are gatekeepers in the music industry in the United States. Hello, hi, nice to meet you. So when you have somebody who sits beneath you that misbehaves in ways that had traumatized you when you were a child, you become a man on fire, and you're gonna fuck them up and send them straight to prison. I don't care who you are. If you're not doing the same shit as they are, and you have a conscience, and you've seen what kind of devastating stuff it will do to a child when they've been abused like that, there's not much you can do to stop somebody. And you've watched parents, right, who have had their children abused. You know, they will go to court with a gun and they will fucking kill the person and not even think twice about it. So that's the kind of mentality that it's important to turn the other cheek and not go to that extreme. But the point of the matter is that when someone has been slighted and treated that poorly, and then to watch someone sit beneath them, having hid all that and done that for the whole time of the existence of you could say the manager or the owner or the king, the queen, whatever the fuck you want to call it, has been sitting there realizing that some of his people or her people have been sitting underneath them or at the foot of their throne doing heinous shit like that. Yeah, you know, the system that was created will start to crumble, because it's like, what in the fuck was happening, and why was I not made aware of this shit, right? So, you know, P. Diddy ate shit, right? He was one of the upper management of that part of a pyramid. So really what you're seeing is you're seeing a lot of different parts of a pyramid in society, with all this upheaval being rearranged and repaired, going from a dark side to a light side. And that's something that's important to do when you see all the heinous shit that's going on in society. It can't go on intentionally for a long period of time. Sex trafficking, child trafficking, drug trafficking, a lot of that crap, you know, it can turn into quite a fucking nightmare if you look at it, because you know, if they start drug trafficking, then they start finding other ways to make money that go along with the program of what they're already doing. And so it's very easy to take somebody and throw a backpack on them, and you'd be doing both at the same time type of mentality. You'd probably be doing sex trafficking and drug trafficking at the same time. You throw a backpack on a hoe bag, and ta-da, it's a 2-for-1 deal, right? So, you know, when you look at that type of mentality of things, you go, well, what in the fuck? I actually have a Sean John shirt. It's one of the first shirts that P. Diddy ever made. It's a sample shirt. I got it, God, probably close to 25 years ago. And I've been wearing it around, playing it around. I was going to give it to somebody, but I never actually met that person, and we were going to, I had the intention of setting the fucking thing on fire with them as kind of a paying homage to new beginnings, right? And but this person was of the dark side, and they tried to betray me and harm me along the way, because they found out that I was a creature of light. They wanted me to join the dark side, right? And so I got tempted and promised with a large sum of money. I got tempted and promised with fame, fortune, riches, a mansion, a hotel with hookers, a hotel full of hookers. Oh, so that was I passed up all that. not about ready to be bought. And that's the thing, is that when the dark side knows your value and knows your spiritual energy, what you're capable of, they'll throw the kitchen sink at you. We'll put it that way. They will throw the fucking kitchen sink at you, and they'll try to get whatever they can out of you. In that way, they'll do what they can to get you to go to the dark side. That is very true. If you slip in your faith, if you out of anger say, why have I not gotten more than what I have now through all the hard work that I've done, and the devil hears you, that's when he slips in. And that's very true. Some of the things I've read in the Bible and some of the things I've heard more wise people say about how the devil operates, oh, it's true. It's true. The devil will try to sneak in when you're most vulnerable and when your faith has been touched the most. So that's something that you have to make sure that you don't allow to happen, right? You don't want your faith to be weakened to the point where you will succumb to the whims of the world, whether it be sexual promiscuity, whether it be monetary gain, whether it be your ego for, fame, riches, fortune, material possessions. You'll notice that a lot of these rich people out there have everything in the world and they're still fucking miserable. They put on a show, they smile, they laugh, but in reality, they're still not happy on the inside, and they never will be. And that's partially because of the shit that they've done to get what they want, and they'll never be happy with themselves. They can't be at peace, and so that's one of the things, is that when you're spiritually enlightened and you believe in God, you believe in a higher power, a good God, then you can remain at peace. And I have to say that my faith has been tried and tested quite a bit, especially in the last, couple years. But I always fall back to recognizing the spiritual realm that's deeper than the 5 senses that I have. And I have more than 5 senses, I can tell you that much. But I say the 5 physical senses in which you can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. A lot of what we see with our 5 senses is... I see people call it not real, but it is, right? It's real. We see it, we recognize it, but there's more layers to reality than what we see with our 5 senses. And so those are things that I have to remember and remind myself. And I always like to say that I know that God exists because I'm still alive. But I know that the devil exists also because I'm not dead. And it's kind of a joke, because there's been times in my life where I've just been tormented to the point where it's like, okay, obviously the devil still exists because I would be dead already. And it's kind of a joke, because it's like, that's kind of the devil wants to steal, kill, and destroy. But at the same time, he's kind of a sick little creature. He does like to play with people like a cat does with the mouse. And they can only do so much. They can really only do so much. And one of the things is that the devil has rules to abide by too, and they can only do so much. And if they break those boundaries, they break those rules, then the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse come to their front door. And those are things that you have to remember. You end up with fires, floods, pestilence, and war type of mentality. So if you're a high-ranking, say, Satanist in a country and you harm someone else that's a creature of light, depending on the spiritual levels of each creature, each person, come the consequences. So the worst thing that you can do as a Satanist is go up against a very high spiritually ranked creature of light, only to find out that you harmed them in a way that the spiritual realm recognizes to be so irreparable that the only way to pay back is dire consequences in the physical realm. And you'll see stuff like that. You'll be like, what in the heck's happening here? Why did Malibu burn? That didn't make any sense. Why did the fire come down the hill, run up through Malibu, and set a bunch of houses on fire a long time ago? There's your sign, So Those would be dire consequences of Satanists harming a creature of light. Those are that would be an interesting thing, right? You know, to wonder why Malibu would light on fire in a certain way like that. That's just kind of an example. So the moral of the story is that don't fuck with the creature of light if you're a demon. Bad news for you, right? So you end up losing your material possessions that you work so hard for on the side of the dark side. And you know, these are, after a while you'll see the patterns. You'll see the patterns of these situations, especially if you're part of the army of light fighting darkness. You will see this. You will recognize the balancing of the scales and the consequences for actions when someone tries to harm you if you are a creature of light. The creatures of darkness, what happens with them is that if they start to successfully harm a creature of light, they get fame and fortune and material possessions, but it doesn't last. The point is that it never lasts. They don't get to keep it. They just get to touch it for a temporary time. They all go to hell anyways. And that's one of the things that you'll see in the Christian Bible and a lot of other religions, is that, you know, you get reincarnated, right? That's one thing, you get reincarnated, and depending on how you behave here, it depends on how you get reincarnated in the next life. You might end up being a worm or something like that. Nobody wants to be a worm, right? But the thing is that almost every religion's got some sort of kind of what you would call like a loophole where you can behave bad and still get to the pearly gates. It's like, that's not the way it fucking works. You know, people want to have a fluffy pillow at the end of the day, thinking that they can get away with sinning and get away with misbehaving and still get where they need to go as far as, you know, being in a good place after they die. But you can't sin on Saturday, repent on Sunday, and rinse and repeat the next weekend. It doesn't work that way. A lot of people think that they can fuck off, say sorry God, and continue to do it without facing God's wrath eventually for basically insulting God's intelligence and his you know, what you would call his benevolence. Because God's a benevolent creature. If you look around, we are very much in a state of abundance and in a state of bliss. Being creatures living on this planet, we've been given quite a lot. Even if you're just sitting, you know, alone, you don't have a lot of people to talk to, you're sleeping on a bench, you still are blessed. And even those people will recognize that they're blessed. Like me, for example, seeing what I've done, where I've been, and kind of where I'm standing right now, it's kind of a joke, because, you know, with Satanists, they have it all. Maybe they live in a mansion, maybe they have millions of dollars in the bank, and so it's kind of like the higher that they go up, the harder that they fall. And that's one of the things that makes it so hard for them, because they care more about material possessions, right? They care more about some material possessions than they do people. And so when they lose their material possessions, they fucking cry, they freak out, they have a fit, they can't fucking handle it. And that's a major fail, okay? That's a major fail, because that's all they cared about. And so a lot of times they will go have these moments where they'll just fall apart, and that's because they lost something precious to them. And, you know, it's usually not what you would call a meaningful relationship. When I was young, I was extremely protected, much more than I am now, because I can kind of hold my own in the spiritual realm. But there's times where people slighted me or started to harm me, and, you know, really bad shit happened to them. And now I look at it, and, you know, I think it's partially because I've been a more forgiving individual in the spiritual realm. You know, I don't take the damage as I would the same way as if I was a young child. And I think that's something that God has a tendency of doing, is to overprotect the youth on the light side. So if you have a very young child that is born to be a very prominent figure as a creature of light, God will just lay down a fucking lightning bolt on just about anybody who does them wrong. And I think as you get older and you become more strong in your faith and more capable in the spiritual realm, God kind of takes his hand off of you because he knows you can handle the shit, right? And so that's pretty much obvious when you read that in the Bible. You can see that happening in the physical realm as well too. But right now, I'm going to be honest with you of what's happening right now in the musical industry of the United States, because I know this shit, because I'm basically fixing the fucking problem. I kind of went off, we'll put it that way. You could say I went off the deep end. I'm just cleaning up a mess I wasn't aware of, and people underneath me shouldn't have been fucking doing to begin with. Right now, a good portion of the rap industry is getting cleaned up, because who wants to listen about rims, grills, and shooting each other? And that's why Tupac was executed, right? He was, if you listen to his song, what was it called? Keep Your Head Up. That was a huge song. A lot of his songs were about coming up out of the ghetto. And so, was it Biggie was shooting at Tupac when he was with Snoop Dogg like a week earlier or something like that. And then Snoop Dogg is a turncoat and comes around and wants to go sign a record label with those guys after Tupac was almost got capped, and Tupac was like, "What the fuck's wrong with you? They just shot at me last week. Are you my homie or my enemy?" And then he died a week later. So I'm kind of like looking at Snoop Dogg and I'm calling you out, kind of like, fuck you. You know who killed Tupac. You did, because I seen your interview, and you motherfucker. You can't hide that shit from me. I've been trained too well to see through your bullshit. So I'm kind of pissed. You need to fucking nut up and say, this is the motherfuckers that killed Tupac. It's been what, 15, 20 years? But then you'd be a rat, huh? Then you couldn't hang anymore. So, that's why you got a creature of dark, on the dark side. And you can't say that shit. You can't be honest, right? You got to still hide in the fucking dark. But I'm calling that shit out. I can see it. That's one of the beautiful things of being a creature of light, is that you can put light upon the darkness, and you can say, I fucking see you. My eye sees you. And I'm not happy about that, because that's your own people. That's your own people. You're perpetuating the garbage that's causing problems in society up to this day, right? And so that's why part of the rap industry is burning right now. And P. Diddy and everyone beneath them are essentially running around on fire, trying to cover their own shit, because it's basically a criminal organization of kid fuckers and traffickers of various garbage, whether it be kids or hookers or drugs or whatever. And that just can't fucking go on, man. You can't go on. You can't sit there and allow the black community to get ran into the fucking ground year after year after year, because Hollywood stars want to say, I'm cool because I run around like a hood and can handle my shit. And I look at myself, right? I can't say that I'm someone who's ran through the ghetto and survived. I've been through Compton, I've been through Inglewood, back in the day when they weren't gentrified, when they were actually, tough neighborhoods. And I ran through LA and when I was a kid, and I've been to like the border towns in Mexico. Back when the MS-13 started rolling heads in the street. That was right when I left my hometown and moved elsewhere. But I've been around, and I've been shot at, and had people pull knives on me and shit like that, and almost been beaten half to death and tormented by the dark side, in more ways than one, and to the point where I've had to pick up the pieces of myself and repair my own body to get back to where I needed to be. And You know, every time that this happens, it only makes me stronger. They only elevate me. The more abuse that I take, the stronger that I get. See all the noise that's happening right now. So this is cute, you know. That's one of the things, is they don't realize that the more that they beat me down, the stronger I get in the spiritual realm, and the more formidable of an opponent I get to be. I don't think they recognize that. It's kind of a mistake on their part. But anyways, there's various people that are essentially what you would say underneath the gun, metaphorically speaking, in the music industry in the United States. And that's because it needs to be cleaned up. They're doing shit they don't need to be doing. And that's why there's been various attacks. There's been various attacks here and there on the upper management. And that's because the most they can do is write a song about it, you know, put a commercial out with some sort of metaphorical symbolism to try to psychologically abuse that person, try to get him to shut up. And I say, you know, war's coming, prepare to get wrecked.